the tool that we want to use here is in the user menu. It's called Object Ed. And I think when we've talked previously, you mentioned that the interface that was created here isn't exactly intuitive.
Right. That was my problem.
Right.
And I could only find tutorials online that were not in English, so it made it very difficult for me. And unfortunately, I no longer have an Amos manual, although I don't even recall if they explained how to use these in the manual. I assume they did, but maybe not.
I don't recall either. I think they did have a section on it. I don't think I've ever read it. I think I probably just dove in.
Right.
But this interface here shows what was one of the very new features in Amos Pro back 20 some odd years ago. The interface language that allowed you to make pop-up boxes and just dialog boxes and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think it was a little bit ahead of its time even for now. All right. So I'm just going to go through some of the menus at the top. Actually, yeah. Let me give you a layout here of the bottom first. Okay, so coming from ProMotion, this is archaic. But here we have the main drawing window right here in the left-hand side, along with your color palette over on the very left. Up here, these three things are your current selected color, like foreground color and background color. I don't remember what the third one is. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, this shows the current bank of images that's loaded. Amos calls these sprite banks,
Right.
bob banks, or icon banks for like background images and such.
Right. Just for people who don't know, a bob was a blitter drawn object. So it was
Right.
What was it? Blitter object. What did bob stand for?
Yeah, I believe it was just blitter object. The
Blitter
first B is for
object.
blitter, and
Right.
then
OB
ob.
for object. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So, and there's some drawing tools up here at the top. Again, pretty rudimentary stuff. Here's a,
Right. So people can theoretically use this tool alone if they hate themselves. They can create all of their required sprite art right within this one program.
Exactly.
This is part of Amos.
Some of this is really odd. I mean, coming from DPaint here, you can draw a line, and then
it keeps that line as a brush.
Keeps
so
that line around, and you
stamp it
can.
down.
It's very different from DPaint.
It makes a lot of sense for workflow. Like, it's a pretty cool idea,
Sure.
as long as you can get back to drawing with a single pixel very easily. But
Right.
I've actually never seen that in another program, and it actually it's pretty elegant, but it certainly would be confusing the first time it happens.
Right.
And I assume there's a way to change the overall, like I can see here in this case, by default it's 48 by 64 pixels.
Right.
I assume there's a way to change the quote-unquote canvas size for each frame. Oh, it's that simple. Okay, you change it over here, and now every frame in the bank is going to be that size. Is that the case?
No. The frames can be different sizes.
Oh, that's good.
So, I'll show that. Well,
right.
I'll show that a little bit later when we get to extracting the images. But yeah, the images themselves can be compacted if it's a small object, and larger if it's a big object. So you can have do some cutting, make brushes and such.
So how come there are two scissor icons? What is the difference between the two?
Good question. I believe that one of them cuts
I see.
and just keeps it, and the other one, hold on. Okay.
Oh, maybe that restores the brush that you have.
Yeah, it restores the brush.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a right button action on there. I'm trying it right now. No. Like in Deluxe Paint, if you right-click while you grab a brush, it will
cut it
remove,
instead of just
it'll cut it,
yeah.
right? Exactly. So this doesn't have that, but it's still somewhat powerful, actually. I'm not entirely certain what these two things do. Here you can flip
right.
image.
That's certainly handy if you're if you need your character to have both left and right facing
Right.
animations. Like you could load in one, and I assume you can copy a bank and then or copy a frame and then quickly create a flipped version.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Amos does have the ability to flip a single image as well, like
right.
on the fly.
Right.
So you don't necessarily even have to have the multiple images in the sprite bank.
Right. I would assume on classic Amigas, if you tried doing that with a robustly animated entire character sprite, you might end up with some performance hit. That's a guess.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. I guess I don't know the details of that implementation yet, but when I do, then
I actually used that feature, and it was beautiful for a Street Fighter style character select screen, where it had a very large, like you would pick the character from a roster of characters, just little head portraits up at the top. But then whichever character you were picking, there was a very large full torso portrait close-up of the character. So there was like a versus in the middle, and then the player 1 would be on the left, player 2 would be on the right. And the player 2 on the right, all of the large versions of the character he was selecting were horizontally flipped compared to how it would look if player 1 chose the same character. So that way I could have a really nice look where like the portraits of the characters are facing each other with the verses in the middle, but I only needed the memory of the only facing from, to the right. And it worked very well, but at that time I only had an actual Amiga 1200, so it was the AGA more powerful chipset. So I have no idea how well that would have run, like how much of a frame rate hit it would have taken, because it was flipping those giant portraits on the fly every time you chose a new character for player 2.
Right. I remember the documentation in Amos made a pretty big deal about this ability.
Yeah.
I don't recall how much of a performance hit it would take.
Yeah, I could say that screen, which was 32 color, ran very well, and I had several animated objects on screen and these giant 32 color portraits. And for a it was a CD32, in fact, with an SX, was it called, SX1, to turn it into an A1200.
Oh yeah, right.
But anyway, it ran very well, even with very large objects being flipped. But I'm just guessing, like if you tried that with an A500 and you were trying to do a game like Final Fight or Streets of Rage or something with like 5 or 6 largely animated characters on screen, and half of them were being flipped at any one time, I would guess there would be a performance hit. But
I would too, but
yeah,
maybe Code Tapper would be the man to ask about that trick. I don't know.
Or I would just create a quick benchmark test that wouldn't take too long to see what happens when you just flip, suddenly flip half of the objects or all of the objects on screen. But anyway.
All right. Well, I mean, those are the main tools. I don't really know what the M does here. It's probably in the manual.
Right.
Or the 1 and 2 buttons. But the rest of these are fairly self-explanatory.
Right. One thing I did notice, like, I assume that E stands for empty in the bank. So I assume after you draw something, you have to do something to actually put it into the first frame. So how do you do that? Okay.
Well, let's just draw a nice little box. And we'll want to...
Oh, I don't know if the microphone is picking this up, but the apartment directly below me is recently vacant, and the owners are having it completely renovated. So
at
some point we might get some very loud construction noises, and if that starts happening, I'll just start muting my microphone when I'm not speaking.
Okay, I have not heard it yet, but
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so I'll get into these menus in the future here a little bit in more detail, but the menu you want to click on to add a sprite to the bank is this chip menu, this chip and frame icon. When you click it, it expands the menu out,
Right.
and the image to the chip is the image that actually puts it into the bank. It doesn't know where to put it. So let's try that again.
No, origin. Does origin mean a hotspot? Do you need to set a hotspot first?
No. I needed to actually insert it. I apologize.
Okay.
I hadn't planned on doing that particular item, but apparently, unless you load it from the bank to the image editor,
right,
it doesn't know where it's from. So if you click on this icon, it tries to put it back into the same location in the bank where it came from, and it didn't like that I had not previously pulled it from the bank.
Gotcha. So that would be how you would select that particular frame over on the right from the list, and then you could edit it, and then to update it so that it now reflects your new edits, you would click that button.
Correct.
But if you're creating something from scratch, you would click that other thing that will insert it into the bank. Okay.
Right, exactly. All right. This is the load from the bank button. Right. So if you have an image you want to load onto the editor, you use that one.
Okay. Can you make one more image that looks different and insert it so we can see that working? Just like make a blue rectangle or something else.
Sure.
All right. Oh, yeah, that's kind of elegant how you can just quickly edit the previous existing frame, but it's not immediately copying over the other one in bank one, I guess you could call it.
Right.
So yeah, that's good, because a lot of times with small pixel art, each frame is just a small modification of the previous frame. So that makes sense. Okay, so now if you wanted to start editing frame 1 again, you would just click on it over there on the right and then click on load.
Right.
Why
it tells me that I made a change and haven't saved it. I'll continue anyway. And there it loaded frame 1 again.
I'm surprised it just doesn't automatically update when you click on it. Like, it doesn't look like there's any visual feedback when you select it over on the right. Oh, there. Oh, it highlights.
It highlights, and then the last loaded frame has the star next to it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if double clicking it. Yeah, double clicking it will load it as well.
Nice. Okay, very nice.
So I'm going to try to insert a green one in the middle. So I believe the insertion always inserts after the current frame. Right. So I want to insert green between red and blue. So I'll select the first frame and select insert again, and that did not work. It inserts before.
Okay. Is there a way to change the order easily, or would you have to manually?
No, it's not a drag and drop, so no, I'd have to remove it. So let's try it.
There you go.
There. Okay.
All right. And what about that? There's a magnify and there's a move icon, and there's an eyeball icon. What do those three do?
The eyeball changes the color of the outlined.
Oh, the interface.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know
just
if you're
in
seeing...
case, yeah, because if you have an image with a every image you load in will have its own palette, and therefore some palettes will make the interface very hard to see. So this redraws the interface with a different color so that you can find a color that works. That's
correct.
Okay.
I don't know what M does. It's a toggle, but I can't quite tell.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder. Does that have something to do with memory?
It's possible. Guess I should have had my Amos manual handy here and looked it up.
All right. Like the basic stuff is obviously the most important. All right, cool. And how do you set a hotspot for an image?
Okay. The hotspot is this little targeting icon.
The little James Bond icon?
Yes, exactly. So there's... Right.
Go ahead.
There's defaults here. You can set the top center, or the top right, and so on. Right. Here's right in the center.
Okay. And can you manually draw?
Yes, you can manually move it here. If you go onto the image itself,
and
you can set it.
Click to place it down.
Correct. I'm holding the left button down and moving this around, and then when I let go of it, it'll place the hotspot there.
Okay.
And when I save it, the hotspot will save along with the image.
Right. And one last question about that is, how do you trim any particular frame? So, like you said, each frame can be trimmed a different size.
Right.
Let's say you wanted to trim the green one. Okay, so that only affects the particular frame that's being seen.
Right. So let me go back and save it. Oh, I hear the construction now. Excellent.
Okay. Yeah.
No, that was not good.
Oh, it saved it over the wrong one.
Yep.
And did undo not work?
Undo did not work.
No, that's a shame. So be careful, anyone that uses this.
Right.
In a lot of programs like this, undo will only undo certain things and not some pretty important things. So save often.
Exactly.
We get the gist of it. You definitely created a trimmed frame, so now we know how to do it. Just got to be really careful when you're reapplying it back over the frame to make sure you're doing it to the same frame you want to.
Correct.
All right. Let me know if that hammering gets too loud so I can, because I have my headphones on.
No, it's not too bad for me.
Okay. Hopefully it's the same for the audience. If not, sorry everyone. Okay.
I'm going to clear.
Yep.
I'm going to clear this bank and start over.
And show how to
and I'll show you how we
Awesome.
cut this thing. So this is the tool or the menu that does the cutting.
Okay. It looks like the little what were those machines called at arcades and fairs with the robotic arm that would, like the crane thing that would grab
crane. Exactly. Yes. So earlier you had sent me an image, and I'll try to load that up here.
Which, just so people know, the standard image and animation file format on Amigas was IFF, which I think is interchangeable file format. Is that what it stood for?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Here it is, Bob's IFF. Beautiful artwork.
Thank you.
So once you load it up here, you can use this little tool to grab anything you want. And I'm just holding down the left button as I move the mouse. In just like any of the drawing commands, once I let go of the left mouse button, I then have this thing I can move around, this little tool.
Okay. So then you have to click it down one more time to finalize.
More time actually selects it and loads it in the editor.
Nice. I like how it inverted color, so to guarantee you can see very clearly what you have selected versus what you have not selected.
Yes, exactly. It has a handy dandy insertion button right here, so you don't have to keep going back and forth, which is nice.
Very nice.
And
then you just click the crane icon again and just grab another thing.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Cool.
Let me try this explosion. I'll cut a few of these out. And I'll cut them out trimmed as well, so that we can use the hotspot.
Right.
And it automatically advances to the next frame.
Right. One thing I did notice is that what it's doing per frame is it looks like it's rounding up the width to make it probably a multiple of 8 or something.
Correct.
Or, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is necessary for sprites, I guess, but not really for Bobs. But I guess.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe there's a potential optimization for
indeed.
saving memory. Tweak the program so it doesn't round up Bob images widths.
Right. I think there is a the Amos manual seemed to speak of Sprite and Bob's interchangeably in a way.
Right.
And I wonder if there was just either a misunderstanding of that, or if
right.
if there is some other reason for it. But
right. I have a feeling because the limitation would be required for sprites, they just left it like that for everything. Because most people wouldn't be any the wiser in when you add different edge cases for different things, then you add all kinds of chances for confusion or human error.
Right.
People would be, like you can have the same bank hold images that you're going to use for sprites or Bobs, and then suddenly if you had some trimmed the wrong way for the wrong thing, then you could cause problems in Amos or crashes, or if you're trying to use too many sprites for one thing or something. So I'm guessing they just decided to keep it simple.
Exactly.
Okay, that works.
So I have a simple bank here of an explosion sequence and a character.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go over here to the animation button and create a simple animation. This is not that useful in the sense of it won't save your animation to the bank, but it does allow you to sort of preview your animations and see if
your hotspots are in the right place.
Yeah, really exactly. Important.
Yeah.
Which they probably will not be in this case.
Poor player is blowing up.
Right, our player is blowing up.
Yes, if you didn't take the time to set the hotspot, it's going to be a bit wonky. But can you go after the fact and tweak the hotspot and then?
You can, yes.
All right, well that's great.
So let's do that. I'm going to set it in the center. Actually, I need to load it up.
So basically for each frame you need to load it into the editing frame and then edit your thing and then put it back into that slot, making sure you haven't changed which slot you have selected in the meantime.
Correct. There is a little bit to keep track of.
Yeah.
And
it's not too bad.
No.
And definitely faster than what I've been doing, which is hard coding the grabbing of all of this in Amos. So in my Amos demo, like probably half the code right now is just loading up the IFF image and telling it with exact left and top left corner and bottom right corners every frame to grab, and then hand setting or manually in the code setting the hotspot for each image. So this is much better than that.
Indeed. It would be nice if there was a more direct way to do this, keyboard shortcuts or some kind of menu toolbar that would allow you to customize some of these. But
automating, like being able to turn on something so that it's like as soon as you left click, it knows you want to edit that particular frame, and as soon as you switch to a new frame, it automatically saves your changes to the frame you just changed. Would save people
Right.
a lot of time. Like I think they were erring on the side of caution to protect people from accidentally changing art they didn't want to.
Yeah.
The cost was very high as far as workflow. Just made it much more time consuming. But still a lot better, like I said, than hard coding all of this stuff.
And yes, that's true. Eventually here we'll get ProMotion written in Amos, right? Let's replace this. Okay. So I've set the hotspots. Now let's see if the animation works any better. And it does a little bit.
Yep. You'd have to sort of know what the animation was supposed to look like to begin with, but in general, like as it progresses, it floats upwards, so you would need to move the hotspot lower and lower for each frame. Is it possible to put the hotspot literally below the pixel art? Or would you need to increase that frame to move its hotspot below it? Does that make sense? That's a good question.
I keep hitting that wrong button. It does make sense.
Because I think there's no limit in Amos. If you're hard coding it, I think you could make the hotspot go outside the image, but I don't know if you can in the editor.
So if I
if you do that,
do it manually, it seems to be outside there. Now I wonder if I can set it and move it out. No, I can't move it beyond the.
Oh, there's another potential improvement that I can.
Yeah,
maybe I can get someone to.
that's
change
a good idea.
Because obviously that's super useful to, and actually necessary, and it would save a lot of memory. I would assume if you're not wasting memory for the image to have a bunch of empty pixels at the bottom.
Right, exactly. So, just to briefly go over some of these other buttons.
Mm-hmm.
This is the quit button, the flag. When apparently you give up, you surrender.
That doesn't seem like you would really save your work, but luckily it does. Or maybe it asks you if you want to save.
Let's see. It does. It does. Okay, Object bank is not saved. Continue. No, I don't want to continue.
Okay. So I assume that disk is how you would access load and save. The disk drive.
Correct. Okay. Right. This is load disk pointing to the chip. You can append. So if you have a bank already loaded and you want to add another bank and sort of combine them, you can use this to append a new bank to the current bank.
Okay, so that would mean the bank you have loaded now, you want to load a previously saved bank into it. So it's going from the disk to the memory without, and it's adding it, it's not loading it over. Okay, that makes sense.
This would be saving to a bank you've previously saved to.
Okay, so.
And this would be a save as, like you're creating a new bank.
Right.
And this is what I'd have to hold on.
So do you have the time and would you be able to save this, then go into Amos and show how in Amos you would actually tell it to load this bank and then...
Yeah, I could try that here. Hold on.
And I really appreciate this. Thanks very much. Like I said, I tried to use this recently and without the manual, and I could not find any tutorial videos that were in English, so it was basically at the time, because my time was limited, it was quicker for me to hard code than it was for me to invest the time to figure out the tool and then do it the proper way. So now I'll be able to do it the proper way. What's going on with the characters?
I don't know. Sometimes I have this problem with my emulator.
Keyboard emulator is like
is gone wonky on me here.
It thinks you're
trying to get
in an alien language or something.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is a valid name or not.
Right.
We'll try it.
I hope you don't have to type the name of the bank to load in Amos. You probably do, right? Because how are you going to recreate
Yeah,
that name?
I may have to restart the emulator.
Or maybe you could rename the file in Amos. In Workbench first.
True, yes. Let me see if... Yeah, it doesn't like that name. Sorry about this.
See if you can find any regular character.
Let me try to go back. I'll get out of here and
Right.
go back. There we go. There it came back.
Oh, nice.
Not done. That's not helpful. It's not reassuring.
Yes. Saying why it was not done is always good.
Yeah, it's not listed there. This is not helpful. Well, maybe I need to resave this because that's what it's complaining about. And now I'll go back and try again.
What does it say? File not found. It's like it.
Yeah, it appended
that's
this
loading.
ABK.
It's trying to load. That's why it's saying file not found. I think.
I hope not.
Oh, how weird.
It's definitely not what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, those are confusing icons. But yeah, I guess that's supposed to be save as. It makes sense. But why would it say file not found when you're trying to save something?
I don't know. This is embarrassing.
Oh, why are there two rows there? Is the bottom where you're supposed to type the name, maybe?
That may be. It's been a while, man.
Yeah, try typing the name down there. Not there.
That's probably why it appended the .abk. There we go. Do you want to save it as a Bob bank? Yes. Well, apparently it does distinguish between Bobs and Sprites, which
Right.
would make sense to optimize that later.
Yeah. So that it's trimmed and not wasting blank pixels on the right-hand side.
So I'll blame all the errors tonight on the fact that it's 2 in the morning here and I'm tired.
Yes. I think we've got similar levels of fatigue at this moment.
I'm going to finally
really
give up on
appreciate
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, now you're going to test my memory here.
Amos syntax.
Right.
Memory.
I think it's bank 1 for sprites.
So Bob 1 designates it's going to be the first Bob or blitter object being used, and then 2020 would be the location on screen.
Correct.
20 across, 20 down, and then 3 is theoretically which image from the bank.
Right. That did not go as planned, however.
You don't have to do something first to like reserve the bank or something like that?
The load command should
Automatically do that?
do that. Now, what's the command here? I'm so used to like doing tab complete now.
Right.
It's okay. How do the English spell
it's
palette?
P-A-L-E-T-T-E, I think. Just one L.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well,
I got the palette.
it got the palette, so there's something there.
Yeah.
So what did I do wrong? I probably have
Oh, interesting.
no.
Do you think maybe you need a do loop just for the sake of... I don't think
I
that's
don't
the
think
case.
so.
Yeah.
This is definitely
We're
fatiguing.
close. It's definitely loading.
I know.
In the it's loading in the bank. That's good. And you definitely have more than 3 or 4 frames. So unless we're missing a number, that should be the player ship right there.
It should. Let me load a screen. I don't remember how many colors were on that screen. Do you recall?
16 color.
Okay. No. Let's go right dead center. Nope.
The fact that there's a cursor on the screen when it's running is bugging me. Like, would that disappear with the... Or do you have to do something to get rid of the cursor, actually?
Yeah. What is that now?
I really don't remember. Was that it? Oh, yeah, it's gone, but there's still no player object. Well, we don't have to spend too much time on this. I'm sure eventually some other
I'll get
Amos
it here.
user will be watching
Yeah,
this
I'll be
video
like,
and
what
will
are
be
you doing? You're an idiot.
screaming at the screen. But yeah, if you don't have the manual readily available to you, then we can save that for another time. But it might take a while to find it, especially with our level of fatigue. But I know it's close. I know there's one simple thing that we're overlooking. It's certainly loading the bank and getting its palette. So.
There it is.
There it is. It needed
Bob update. Oh, I've got flashing.
Yep. I think it's just flash off, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah, so what it was doing is... Oh, go ahead. You explain it.
Yeah. For the uninitiated, Amos used a double buffer system to try to reduce flashing or, like flickering when it was drawing large bobs. Mm-hmm. And part of the bob updating system would delay drawing the bob until the back buffer was available. And what would actually update and draw the bobs was a call to this bob update command.
Right. So that would usually be in your loop. So
correct.
Like usually toward the end of the loop, after you do all your moving and frame changing, at the end before it loops back, you would do bob update. That way it would update all of the blitter objects on screen to match whatever changes have happened in that loop.
Correct.
I thought you were going to explain what I was going to explain actually was what flash off was. And you can see right here the cursor is changing color.
It's flashing.
That's
yes.
actually one image that what Amos is doing is just changing the color index that that particular little cursor image uses on the fly. It keeps changing it, fading from yellow, it looks like yellow, white, and black or something like that. So it'll keep doing that even in your game unless you tell it to not do that, and that's what flash off does. Flash off turns that it stops that color index from being changed. And the artwork I did happens to use the same color index somewhere, so that's why you get that flashing. Oh, did you comment out and flash off and I didn't see
I
it?
did, just
Okay,
to show
excellent.
everyone that
Yep.
it is indeed flashing,
Okay.
and then I'll uncomment that, and
So now people also know how to comment out a line in Amos.
right.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for showing me that. That'll really help clean up my code and save me a lot of time in the long run. Hopefully